Look at my jug. That's for my kids.
I love that.
The man, the myth, the legend.
So that is who we have today here on Global Liver Institute's GLI Live. We have Dr. Ken Cusi, the man, the myth, the legend. Really a top. I was going to say well known, but you're not well enough known, at least for my taste. You should be better known, and that's what we'll hope for after today. So this is GLI Live. I am Donna Cryer, your host and founder and CEO of the Global Liver Institute, which is a patient-driven advocacy organization that operates in the U.S. and Europe. We started this program as a part of our COVID-19 response, answering questions from patients and families and really all stakeholders from all walks of life who wanted to know how COVID was affecting frontline workers who had liver diseases, autoimmune diseases, transplants, school teachers, people at home, and it's grown into so much more as an educational resource for many, as a point of connection and solace for many. And I'm really excited that we are having this last episode of 2020. It was, we had a lot of choices. We had a lot of really hard decisions about what we would do for our very last episode of the year. What would really be that capstone? What would, people want to remember most from what we did and what we talked about this year. And so it seems to me that talking about the connections between Nash and diabetes, which can only be increasingly more important in 2021, would be the best way to end the year. Plus, I like talking to Dr. Cusi, so.
Well, I would have to agree 100% on your decision here.
Thank you. So Dr. Kenneth Cusi is professor of medicine and chief of endocrinology and diabetes at the University of Florida. But he is also a member of numerous task force committees.
That doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. We're working.
But you use those platforms for good. You use those as opportunities to bring, to cause increased collaboration between hepatology and endocrinology, to increase the amount of knowledge that endocrinologists and people treating both people with liver diseases and diabetes, to help have them more informed and take it with more urgency, how we need to address this epidemic of NASH that started before COVID and will still be here, unfortunately, after COVID. So let me start off by asking, what were you seeing in your own research and clinics that made you want to start really digging in deeper on NASH?
Well, thank you, Dana. Above all, I just want to say thank you for your kind introduction. I mean, that's what friends are for, but you've also done a lot, and I like your perspective. And among the many things that I do, my favorite is to talk to patients. And I have clinics I work at the VA and I work at the university, and I see lots of patients. And this is where really everything that we do in the lab or in the comes up to be real. And I just ran into this condition of NASH. And again, for those who are not very familiar, fat can accumulate in the liver, and doctors for the longest time just thought that it was, just a manifestation of obesity. But then we learned that this can lead to inflammation. So when that inflammation happens to a certain level, we call it steatohepatitis. It's a hepatitis induced by steato is fat in Latin, so steatohepatitis, or a lipotoxicity. Mm-hmm. And this chronic inflammation can lead to scarring of the liver, which we call fibrosis, and that can promote cirrhosis, even liver cancer. So the mystery has been resolved. For many years, we saw, diabetes, type 2 diabetes is associated with more liver cancer, and the link has been Nash. So, but there are good news down the road. So we'll talk about that later. So your question is how I stumbled onto this. Well, I'm an endocrinologist. I worked for a long time in a leading laboratory that looks at insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes, and at the Health Science Center at San Antonio, Texas. And we, a fellow, a young gastroenterology doctor said, what do we do with people with elevated liver enzymes? And I said, I don't know. Let me look a little bit and we'll see what we can do. And insulin resistance, I mean, decreased response to insulin in the body was a key thing. So I said, well, metformin may work, but these new drugs called glitazones may work. So we decided to do a study with a friend of yours, also Dr. Steve Harrison, and we published it in the New England Journal of Medicine in 2006. So, and then I just kind of got dragged into the topic because there was so little known that I began saying to my endocrinology and primary care peers, hey guys, wake up. We got a big crisis here and nobody's doing anything.
There's a quote that I love to use. I believe it's from Toni Morrison, that if you can't find the book that you want to read, it's because you were meant to write it. And
that's like that, yes.
And so
now I have to write a book. Okay.
Now you are writing the book. You're writing this book one paper at a time, one life at a time, changing the story and the narrative around the connection between type 2 diabetes and NASH. When I ask, I have many friends, fellow advocates with type 2 diabetes, some of whom lead very large communities. And when I started asking them, I'm like, well, what are you telling your folks about NASH? And they're like, NASH, what is this? And so these are, very informed, very active, very connected people who care deeply about providing information and care navigation to, thousands of patients in very diverse communities. One ran a large, Hispanic platform. And the issue of what they should do about their liver health, what they should be doing about NASH, was never raised with them. And so I see that as one of our largest priorities for advocacy and outreach, and in 2021 for GLI. But I always like to sort of stagger our professional and patient efforts, so that patients would go into doctors' offices who are prepared to receive them.
Well, I tell my patients, just think about all your questions, write them down in a pad. Don't put 20 questions, just then condense them to 4 or 5 or 6 that are the key ones, because then you walk out and if you don't do that, you walk out and I forgot to ask him all these things. So the best patients are to me, the best informed questions, who come with a little notepad and drive us nuts a little bit, but it's that once they understand why we want to do something, they tend to be better at managing their disease.
So what is the top question that a person who has a diagnosis of type 2 diabetes should be asking? And then I'm also going to ask, what is the top question that a NASH patient should be asking about to get to this information about
very good
intersection?
So that's a great thank you for this opportunity, because it's really so important. So one fundamental thing that people with type 2 diabetes, or people without diabetes but who may be overweight or obese, should ask themselves is, do I have insulin resistance? Which this is something that is fairly common if you're not doing regular physical activity, or if you're not in your ideal body weight, or if you have type 2 diabetes. And again, roughly half of it is genetically determined. We can blame our parents. The other half, if we're not in shape, we blame ourselves. But I know life is difficult nowadays, even more with COVID. So, and then, do I have insulin resistance? And if you're overweight or obese, there's a great chance of that. So the next step is make sure that if you don't have diabetes, you've been tested for that, and there's just a blood test that you can do for that. But if you have type 2 diabetes, the next question is to ask your endocrinologist or primary care, Do I have a fatty liver or not? And we just got accepted, and it's going to be coming in February. Out in February, a study where we screened 561 patients with type 2 diabetes just walking into their clinic with no past history of fatty liver. 70% of them have too much fat in the liver. 7 out of 10. Now, if I ask my peers, they don't know that, but they will soon. But the real thing is fat in the liver is just telling you that, the liver, look at the liver as if it was a mirror of your metabolic health. So whether you're lean, overweight, or obese, if you have too much fat in the liver, and there's some simple tests that you can do today to figure that out, you are metabolically unhealthy. That means that we got to do some homework, eat better, don't go to fast food places, do some more physical activity, and lose some weight to reverse that. And it is reversible. So that's a good news. And second, if you have Nash, if your doctor tells you that your liver enzymes are elevated, that is something that is pretty serious. You need to do some imaging studies. And then go ahead.
But so at what point is it no longer reversible through good diet and exercise?
Quite late in the disease. So God has given us this ability for our organs to have a huge reserve. So even if you've damaged your liver by 80%, you still can live a fairly normal lifestyle. So that's important to know, because it's never too late. Almost never too late.
I made it through first year law school at about 25% liver function. So
there you go.
I know that's true. I barely made it. I think I know
you feel a little bit tired, but again, most people, 90% of the people don't get so sick. And again, there's genetic factors involved too.
We were wheeling me into surgery just the day after exams in law school, right on. So I had stayed up all night long at Kinko's at the time, and I had 8 write-on packets for the various law journals, and I told my parents, "Don't mess it up. You need to mail these from the hospital while I'm wheeling in."
Wow, you're a brave lady.
The pressure's all on you. But it's been amazing, what people go through, what they put up with so little liver function, with so many complications. And so the desire to find people earlier when it can be addressed with less intensive lifestyle changes, less intensive management, then letting people get to advanced stages where we really have to ratchet up the intensity of care that we provide for people.
But Donna, that's a great point. So in the end, I like the saying is that life is the sum of your choices. Sometimes you're dealt with very tough cards, but what you do with it and what you do when you fail, it defines you as a person. So in the end, we all have good and bad things that happen to us. But here is something that you can really change with. And again, the number one thing you can do again is modify your lifestyle. So we don't talk anymore about diets. That's old. We talk about kind of loving yourself, choosing healthy foods. We only have this earth suit, that's our body, and it's going to be with us, like we like it or not, forever. So we got to be good, take good care of it. But again, weight loss. Go ahead.
Is there a type of weight loss that is better? I'm going to
very good.
The 7 to 10%, but is it better to focus on lean body mass, or maybe adding some strength training to your regimen rather than going strict cardio? I'm a big fan of the focus on lean body mass. So tell me if I'm,
No, that's good. To be honest, weight is not everything. So if you decide to go to the gym and do weightlifting, your body weight may not change that much, but you're replacing fat for muscle. So weight is a very crude way
Mhm.
doing it. Furthermore, if you do exercise every day, even without weight change, your
Mhm.
body gets healthier and your liver fat goes down and you are starting to prevent NASH. So weight is one measure, but to be honest, we all know what's a healthy lifestyle. Now, the good news is that in the end, you just need to do something that sticks with you. So people have tried low carb diet, low fat diet, Mediterranean diet, um, alternate day fasting or intermittent fasting. Whatever works for you, fine. But again,
Mhm.
don't think of it as a diet. Think that this is I'm choosing a lifestyle, and this is what we're going to do in the long term. Now, the other little secret is that without physical activity,
Mhm.
extremely hard to keep the weight off. So whether you like it or not, this is like brushing your teeth or flossing. We don't like to do it, but without physical activity, it's not going to work. But there are some diabetes medications that work
Mhm.
better than others. So if you have diabetes, maybe it's important to have this conversation with your endocrinologist or primary care, because they can choose some medications that are particularly good for your liver.
I think it's so important that people know all of their options, and if we could find a way to support them in understanding and having access to, whether it's a dietitian to help make sense of all these different foods and all the different types of ways of eating and figure out what's right for you, or a behavioral specialist, if eating has
That's critical.
you know
Critical.
an emotional, it might be that it's the behavioral therapist who can help you sort of crack that code and really get on track. Or for people who, you know, uh, have a higher BMI, it might be a weight loss drug or a bariatric surgery referral.
Absolutely.
I think that just laying out um, the full trajectory of what could happen if you don't take it seriously if you're diagnosed at an early stage, but not quite convinced that, oh, I've heard lose weight before, so what?
Yeah, so I would recommend that you always see at
Yeah.
least a dietitian once, and because I discourage that you just navigate through the web because there's so much misleading information. Go to well-known, qualified resources to find this information. And again, uh, behavioral modification is not easy. I mean, we are stuck to old patterns and all we do. So seeing what triggers sometimes our overeating is important. One side effect that's not mentioned that I've seen is COVID has the ability to shrink the closes of our people. So that's been a real problem. And then bariatric surgery is a very valid option, more widely available than ever before. So you need to really also put realistic expectations. I mean, set a goal that is achievable, find a partner in your weight loss or lifestyle changes, work with other family members or a friend. I mean, and again, the other thing that's important is that you're going to fail many times before you succeed. Okay. So failure is not a meaning that you're worthless, as we usually tell ourselves when things don't go our way. It's just a path to being better and learning and growing. So
I've
embrace
read,
failure.
I've read that most people who have successfully kept off weight for a number of years were successful because they anticipated slips. They anticipated that they were going to eat the piece of cake at a holiday or something, and had a plan for getting right back up so that it didn't derail the entire, oh, I ate that piece of cake, I must not be meant for losing weight, so I'll just eat the.
Right. So other than winning the lottery, most big successes are a chain of failures until something good really happens. And the other bad news is that success, as you might have heard, is not a destination. You got to keep working at consolidating and keeping those successes that you had.
So, as we are at the time of this filming, are anticipating holidays, even pandemic altered holidays. Um, you know, how we're thinking about cooking for the holidays, cooking for our families. preparing this holiday for children um, is top of mind for me, and recognizing that so many children and young people now have, we used to call, you know, type 2 diabetes adult onset, and now
Yeah.
diabetes, because so many children have it, and so many children are developing fatty liver disease and Nash, at younger and younger ages. And so, what are special considerations for those populations?
Well, I mean, again, COVID has made everything more difficult because in the end, now many of us were not going to be able to be with our closer family. So some feelings of isolation or hopelessness or uncertainty and anxiety that can lead us to overeat. I mean, as once we're aware of what is driving this, I mean, it's always easier. So what I would just say is replace those impulses to break our habits or hurt yourself with food by some things that are healthier. Look for ways to communicate with those people. Identify it's okay to be sad or not feel well, but that eating is just going to give you such a temporary relief and make you feel better. It's many of our compulsive behaviors. So if we think about this, and particularly if you have a fatty liver, the key thing here is to know that this is a long-term relationship with your liver and your body, and that you're going to feel better as you adopt some things that can help you, and don't let the holidays, be spoiled by our fears.
I think that's a lovely message. And I do think that, you know, it is convenient that what we do for our liver health also conveys to our heart health, and reducing our risk of type 2 diabetes. It probably improves our brain health. And so,
Absolutely, that's
yeah,
a great point.
all in one. It's not like you have to do all these divergent things. You can drink your cup of coffee in the morning that has
Yeah, yeah. And again, if you want to eat something that you know is nasty, just eat a little bit of it and enjoy it and move on. But again, Donna, you bring a great point. The interventions that we do for fatty liver are part of a whole. So if you increase physical activity and work on your and achieving a better weight that makes you feel better and can help your body. It reduces heart disease, improves your cholesterol, improves your diabetes. The medications also that we use for diabetes. So one old one that has been there for a while called Actos. It's dirt cheap, less than $5 or $10 a month. And we used higher doses, but the lower doses can be as effective to improve your liver and your heart. And there's been a newer one now called semaglutide, which has been marketed for diabetes as Ozempic, that can also be helpful. But again, your doctor would be able to discuss these options with you. And that medication can also help with weight loss. So again, the target is to try to normalize our fat. When we gain too much weight, our fat becomes sick and it begins in a way attacking us, and so we either get rid of it or we can with lifestyle medications like semaglutide or other of a class called glucagon GLP-1 medications, or you change the nature of it, as what we do with pioglitazone, which is a generic medication. It's been a generic for years now. Pioglitazone can change the nature of fat, and again, at the lower to intermediate doses, has very modest side effects.
So not only am I recording this, fantastic episode, but apparently I am mowing my lawn and blowing my leaves at the same time. So I apologize to any listeners or watchers who are.
That happens all the time. They seem that when you're on Zoom, the guy decides to get in the front. So we're very grateful that they do that. But so don't get it wrong. But it's just the timing is off.
That this is live. And so, I had a question that you started to. So what, there are things that people can do now. I know that, there were disappointments earlier this year and some, delays and stalls in getting a drug specifically approved for Nash. And, so all the air went out of the balloon. And some people were walking around thinking, well, then there's just nothing to do in Nash. And we shouldn't even, identify Nash patients. But there is so much that can be done, that the urgency around, screening, identifying, diagnosing Nash, particularly within communities of type 2 diabetes, so that when hopefully, drugs do come, there's so many in the pipeline, it's a very robust field, that the patients will be there, will already be connected to care, will already have physicians, will already have their other concurrent conditions, like diabetes or hypertension or high cholesterol, which most of them, needed to have dealt with and haven't.
Yeah.
Opportunities to improve the health of people right now, while we work on that, while we wait for
Exactly. So my doctors, when I tell them, well, I mean, there's no FDA approved drug. Why should I do anything? There are things you can do starting tomorrow, I tell them. We talked about lifestyle. Weight loss with anti-obesity medications can help. Bariatric surgery is proven to be safe and shows it extends, reduces cardiovascular mortality and reduces and prolongs life. I mean, a recent study in the New England in October showed that people after 20 years of follow-up after bariatric surgery lived longer than those who didn't. And again, even if you don't have diabetes, a study has shown that vitamin E, 800 units a day, can help. There's been some controversy about the risk of prostate cancer or cardiovascular disease, most likely not, but controversial. And then in diabetes, if you have diabetes and need diabetes medications, ask your doctor if you shouldn't be on a GLP-1 kind of medication. Again, the one tested and that has been reported in November is a formulation that's not available, but it's really dependent on weight loss. So these medications can reduce your weight 6 to 10%. And again, pioglitazone, which comes in 15, 30, or 45 milligrams, the intermediate dose is associated with mild weight gain, but it does improve your metabolism and improves your cardiovascular, reduces your cardiovascular risk, improves your lipids, and 50 or 60% of people who take it don't have NASH afterwards. So again, there are things you can do today. Your doctor may know, and if they don't, just find out from the
where should they go?
Find a doctor who will inform you, and your liver doctors probably know, and the liver doctors are quite up to date, most of them. And there are some new guidelines coming in 2021, an update by the American Association for the Study of Liver Disease, and Donna is very active with me in that, and endocrine, the American Association of Clinical Endocrinologists, we are co-chairing some guidelines. So there's an increase. ADA just came out with the 2021 guidelines and recommends that people with diabetes who have elevated liver enzymes or found to have fat in the liver for any reason be tested. And it's relatively simple. I mean, don't think that you need always a liver biopsy. Again, only probably 1 or 2 out of 10 may need to see a liver doctor and consider that option. But with some blood tests and some imaging studies, we can get a pretty good idea where you stand. So it's not either nor expensive nor very complicated. You just need to find a good doctor.
That may be easier said than done sometimes. It's been amazing to me, even in the DC area, in some major metropolitan areas, how hard it can be for some of my friends who've been trying to find a diabetologist, for example.
Yeah, I know. There are only about 3,000 or 4,000 clinical endocrinologists, and we have more than 30 million people with diabetes. So That's a little bit of a mismatch.
And we're going to add, now to add some hepatology expertise on top of that, and there are very few hepatologists.
Yeah.
So,
But thanks to your work, Donna, I mean, more and more will become better informed patients and doctors. And I think we have a bright future. As Donna said, we have also a number of new drugs that may become available in the next 3 years. So in the meantime, let's work on lifestyle and some diabetes meds.
Thank you. And we do have a question from Terry Milton, one of our Nash advocates, who runs a very large support group. So she's in touch with so many patients. And she says, managing diabetes with Nash cirrhosis, is there a way? What is best practice when the liver is sending you into a roller coaster blood sugar levels?
Yeah. Great question. So let's start with the bad news. The bad news is there's not a lot of information on how to handle cirrhosis in patients with diabetes. As you know, many of the medications cannot be taken in cirrhosis. And again, cirrhosis is a broad spectrum from early cirrhosis where the liver is working still okay to decompensated cirrhosis. When you're at a very later stages, only insulin is recommended because most of the diabetes drugs are metabolized by the liver. But in the early stages, low doses of Actos may help, although there's not strong evidence. And maybe some of vitamin E can be tested. But again, I think my advice is to see an endocrinologist to manage it because they would have the greatest expertise on what to do. And the challenge is that in cirrhosis, there are two main problems. One, your insulin is not clearing insulin as it should, which so that insulin levels can be higher. And second, your liver, you don't have too many liver cells to make glucose in between meals, so you get hypoglycemic. So I think you need to get an endocrinologist to help you with that roller coaster.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Terry, for asking the question. So Kathleen asks, post-transplant, my blood sugar levels have improved. Type 2 diabetes, is it possible to get off insulin?
Of course, absolutely. So what happens as you get cirrhosis, you're more prone to get low blood sugars and this roller coaster. Once you get a transplant, the medications used can exacerbate insulin resistance and make it more difficult to control. On the other hand, as you feel better and with more energy and healthier, you may become more possible to become more active. And then there are a number of medications that can be used. We have to recognize that many have not been thoroughly tested in transplant patients, but if kidney function and liver function are normal, again, you need to get a multidisciplinary team with an endocrinologist to tell you which drugs will be safe, oral agents that you could use and get off insulin. So it is possible, but you need to work in a team, ideally maybe in an academic center with the transplant team and an endocrinologist. So we have created that at the University of Florida and many places.
Ken, I'm going to ask you this question just because I've worked too much in patient adherence and health literacy and clear communication. So I'm going to be a little bring a little of the average patient in. When you say take vitamin E, you mean to ingest it and not to rub it on our skin.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. So all the studies that have been done to take oral tablets. Okay. So vitamin E, the 800 unit a day tablets have shown to improve NASH in people without diabetes and to some extent in people with diabetes in a small study we did last year. The controversy is that some studies show that there could be a greater risk of heart disease, which is already high in people with obesity or diabetes, and prostate cancer. It's controversial. So I know it is used, and as long as that you don't have those conditions and you monitor them, I think it'll be okay. I favor pioglitazone for obvious reasons because it has much better evidence, but there's been controversy about bladder cancer with pioglitazone. However, not in women, again, and 18 of the 23 studies have not shown that association. And if you use lower doses, it seems to be apparently safe. A small percentage of people may have edema, but again, for the most part, it is rare. And again, it should be done as part of a multidisciplinary team.
I think that poses the importance of working with qualified professionals. Has all the information about supplements and liver cleanses and quick weight loss things can be so harmful, not only confusing, but mentally and physically harmful. And so constructing a team of specialists to advise you through this is really important. And we have our last question, which is, it seems that insulin impedes weight loss.
Well, yeah, the problem with insulin is that it does induce weight gain for the most part. And that as you try to get your sugars better controlled, you are at greater risk of having a low blood sugar reaction. So that's why in the endocrinology field, we try to exhaust all the oral agents first. Then we go to these weekly injectables called GLP-1 medications. And then we use insulin as our last resort. So probably that should be what you should be doing. And if your doctor is not doing that, there might be a problem. But again, if you have advanced cirrhosis, that probably is your only choice. But again, the last thing is that these new medications for diabetes also prevent cardiovascular disease and kidney damage. So they have other advantages other than lowering the glucose only.
That is a very helpful answer. I don't have diabetes, but I've been on prednisone. We're off and on for long periods of time, including now. And I understand how the corticosteroids can impede weight loss and lead to high blood sugars. So I've been very mindful of my exercise and grateful for my Peloton bike in the basement and the weights to.
There you go. That's the right way to do it. Yes.
So to keep in my pre-COVID clothes. Putting on hard pants today with like buttons and zippers and
the one thing what you said before was so true. There are no shortcuts in terms of weight loss. Anything you read on the checkout of your grocery store, lose 10 pounds in 10 days, unless they're cutting your leg off, there's no way that can work. So it's just common sense, more veggies, fruit, almonds, good fat, and exercise. So nothing, and again, it's a slow process. We gain weight slowly, and we typically are going to lose it for good slowly.
So, Ken, what is your hope for 2021 in this field?
Well, my number one hope and aim is to continue increasing awareness so we can identify patients outside of the liver clinics when we have a better shot of doing good. The second is that a lot of the new drugs succeed. And the third, I would say that hopefully we use the drugs that we have more often and the resources that we have. Unfortunately, not even liver doctors are using so much semaglutide or pioglitazone. So I think things will change. Again, I know people are a little bit discouraged in these COVID times, but maybe this is an opportunity to reset the core beliefs on which we were in a little bit of a rat race and be more truthful to our values, what we want to do. And among them, taking care of our liver is a good place to start, because if we treat our liver with more love, our whole body will benefit as well. So my short wish list, and hopefully we'll have time to talk more in 2021.
I hope so too. I would certainly enjoy that. And I love having our wish and our resolution for 2021 that people love their liver more.
We should too. Yeah, I mean, we wake up. We wake up every day thanks to our liver, because our liver 3 or 4 hours after we eat is making sugar, so our sugars stay in a normal range.
Mhm.
So I wake up every day and say, "Thank you, dear liver, for another for waking up again," and go to work.
Fantastic. So let's all go to work. Thank you, Dr. Cusi, for this fantastic conversation. Thank you to all of you who have been listening and watching and commenting. We will be putting these resources into the show notes, and you are free to share this episode and watch it across Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and on the Global Liver Institute website. My producers tell me that there is yet one more episode in December in 2020.
So I shouldn't feel so special. Okay, don't worry. I still that means you haven't hurt my feelings, Donna.
Still love me.
I still love you, and Jana, who put all the effort to produce this and send me 50 emails. No, it's been a wonderful experience, and we've known each other for a while. And again, you've done so much to increase awareness. So I think we are both on the same frequency, that we just need to. You can never cure what you're not thinking about. That's the Surgeon General said that some time ago. So again, just ask your doctor for questions. If your doctor doesn't want to talk to you, you know that you got to change your doctor.
Find a new doctor. Yeah.
Find a new doctor. Okay. And but there's a lot of good doctors. It's like human beings. There's a big spectrum of human beings out there, and doctors are no different.
That is true. That is true. I'm married to one, and mother,
all the good and the bad, right?
And mother to several. So increasing every time I check. And so not of children that I have, but of medical degrees that they have. To clarify how that's happening, lest rumors start on the internet. But so for 2020, I am so excited that 2021, I will be so excited that the Nash Council that we began in 2017 with my first calls to the Endocrine Society, and they were like, well, do you understand what we do? I'm like, I do, but this is why you should work with us. And to their credit, the Endocrine Society and ACE, my number one and number two calls, were essential to getting this truly addressed well. I've both been, very active, robust members, and now the Nash Council has 70 members of organizations and academic centers, all committed to this problem. So my wish for 2021 is that we truly leverage and activate all 70 members, because if we do that, then we will really have a huge impact and change the direction of how not only NASH, but all the adjacent conditions of diabetes and tension and high cholesterol are identified and managed for patients, and really for a more diverse and inclusive group of patients that we may see in the clinical.
Yeah, we want more patients to be involved and demand better care, demand integrated response. I have to say that unfortunately, this insurance system that we have does not support multidisciplinary teams very well, because they won't reimburse or help us work as a team. There's a lot of very little incentives and lots of barriers, lots of limitations on medications. We really need to change the way that medicine is organized in many ways, to remove the greed out of it and put the patient at the center. So that's probably would be my top wish list in the future. But we know things move slowly. But again, never get discouraged. Never get discouraged if your liver health is not what you expect. As I was telling Donna before we started, I mean, it's the best time in history to have diabetes or liver disease, because we have better medications than ever before in the history of mankind. So there's a great opportunity for that. And again, even the simple statins, reduce heart disease by a third, and you should continue taking it for the most part if you have liver disease, because it can help and it also may help the liver too. So again, it's a great time for being having some chronic conditions. Lots of promising developments. So I think you should not get discouraged if you're ill. I mean, we are advancing in treatments at a very rapid pace. And again, we talk about things you can do today to help it all.
Yes. So there is action for today, hope for the future, and as you can see, a very committed group of people who are standing with patients and physicians to make this better. So thank you.
Thank you, Don. And